Hi, my name is Avitar Ram. I'm a product manager for CMX, and we want to talk a little bit today about CMX Analytics. So we're looking at the CMX Analytics screen, and we're showing here data for a mall. And what we're showing is the data for the last 3 months, which you can see I chose over here. And we're looking at the device count by hour. So basically we're saying how many devices or how many visitors did we see in every hour over the last 3 months. And immediately, if you look at the data, you can kind of see where every day the data goes up and comes down. So clearly, when it comes down, that's nighttime, and it goes up, that's during the daytime. But very quickly, you can see these trends emerging when you look at the data. So I can see that I have these really high peaks here on these days, and I have really high peaks here, and in the middle, it's kind of shorter peaks. And very easily you can confirm that this is the weekend. So on Saturdays and Sundays, I clearly have more visitors than I have in the middle of the week. Another thing you'll notice though, if I look at the data for the middle of the week, so the data here, is that it follows a very interesting dynamic. The people come in the morning and it reaches some sort of peak at about, let's say, 11 or 12 a.m. And then it either stays flat or even declines in the afternoon and then picks up again in the evening. So if I look, for example, at how the visitor count on this day, which was a Friday, I can see that dynamic. They come up until 12, and then at around 2 o'clock there's less devices, and again there's the afternoon crowd for 4 or 5. And interestingly enough, if you look at the weekend data, it behaves in a different way. So right off the bat, I can kind of differentiate between how people are visiting my venue in a weekday as opposed to a weekend. And if I go back over time here using the scroll bar, I can go, for example, to a holiday like Martin Luther King Day, which was here, right here on Monday, January the 19th. And I can see that Martin Luther King Day behaves very much like a weekend day, which is kind of interesting. So this is a good view, but let's say I have a question where I want to ask myself, well, when did I have more people? Was it on this Thursday over here, or was it on the Thursday before it? So let me stretch it out a little bit. Or was it this Thursday, or was it this Thursday? And using this view, it's a little bit difficult to get the answer to that because it is an hourly view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the edit screen for this widget, and instead of showing the data by hour, I'm going to show the data by day, because there's different questions that I can answer now when I look at the data by day. Okay, so now I'm seeing similar data. So I'm seeing the data for the last 3 months, still for the entire building. But you can see now that every data point, instead of being a single hour, every data point is a single day. So if I want to compare, let's say, this Thursday over here, which had 6,000 devices on February 5th, I can compare that to this Thursday, where I had 5,900 devices. So it gives me the ability to look at the data a little bit differently. And this almost raises another question. Well, I see the weekends are higher. I can kind of see it from this chart, and I can compare this Thursday to the last Thursday. But what if I want to know, generally, on average, which days do I get more visitors in? So what I can do is, again, click on the selector. So instead of showing the data by day, I want to show the data by day of the week. So again, it recalculates. And now if I look at the x-axis, I can see that I only have 7 data points from Monday till Sunday. So this is showing me the average data. So for example, if I look at the data for Wednesday, this isn't the number of devices or visitors that I had this Wednesday or last Wednesday. This is the number of visitors that I had on average on all the Wednesdays. And what I can get from this type of visualization is I can clearly see that Saturday is my strongest day. I can clearly see that Thursday is my weakest day, and then followed by Wednesday, etc. So using this view, I can answer different types of questions. Another similar question might be, well, on average, what time of the day do I get more devices or more visitors in? And again, I go to the selector, I choose hour of the day, and I can see what time devices start coming, and then at the end of the day, what time devices start leaving the mall. And I can see when the peak visitation is on average throughout a day. Another view I could do here is I can ask, all right, so that was all data for the entire mall or the entire venue. What if I want to see the data by zone? So I split up my mall to a couple of different parts. I have the center of the mall, the west of the mall, and the east of the mall. And I kind of want to know, when people go into the mall, Do they more typically go to this part or that part or all three parts? And by displaying the data this way, I can very quickly see that the center part of the mall clearly is the most popular, followed by the west and the east part of the mall. So this is interesting information, but let's say I have a business question where I want to know, well, how many people that visit my mall actually spend more than an hour? That's an let's say that's an interesting metric to me. I want to know how many people, aren't just coming in and leaving, but they're spending a significant amount of time. And I can do that as well. If I open this selector here, I can go to dwell threshold, which what the dwell threshold does is say, what devices do I want to count? Do I only want to count devices that spent a certain amount of time in my mall? So I'm going to say, yes, I want to count devices that spent more than 1 hour. And let's say less than 6 hours. So that is the demographic I want to look at, because I'm assuming that anyone who spent more than 6 hours is an employee, and I don't want to count those. So I'll do done. I'll let the MSE calculate it. Okay, so now I got this information, and again, this is filtering out all the devices or all the visitors and only showing me how many people spend more than an hour in different parts of the mall. So this was all about device count. Another question I might have is about dwell time. How long do people spend in my mall? So I'll go to a dwell time report that I've created, and now I'm seeing in different parts of my mall how long on average do they spend. So I can clearly see, for example, that the east part of the mall, even though it didn't get as many devices, even though it didn't get as many visitors as the central part of the mall, which is what we saw before, definitely people are spending more time there. And on the other hand, the center part of the mall, people are spending less time there. So that might be an interesting data point for me that I want to take a look at. Another interesting thing you can do from CMX is I'll go to another type of report called crossover. And this is a way to get a correlation or an understanding of how people are moving across the mall. So for example, you see in the center of the report, I have the west part of the mall, and it's showing me that I had about 21,000 visitors in that part of the mall in last week, which is the date range that I chose here. And what it's also telling me that 50% of the people who were in the west part of the mall were also in the scene in the center part of the mall. So it's giving me a correlation or answering a question, how do people move across the mall? What are the zones that people visit together? Another use case would be to compare this week to last week, or how people visited this week compared with last week, or any two date ranges really. So I've created a report. I've called it this versus last week. On this side of the report, I have the visitors for last week, and on this side, I have the visitors for this week. And I can create this report, and I can expand it a little bit so I can see a little bit more data here. And very quickly, I can compare and see how am I doing this week in comparison to last week. And if I like this report, I can schedule it and send it and save it and export it and do all of that. So that was a little bit of the business value of CMX Analytics. It is a very powerful tool that gives you a lot of flexibility in answering a lot of different types of business questions regarding a venue. And the demo that we did here was on a mall environment, but this works for any other environment such as retail, such as museums, such as conference centers, hospitality, and education. So thank you very much.